Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio, broadcast from the law offices of Morgan Lewis in Philadelphia. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-hosts, who include Caleb Murphy, Merrill Lynch, Meredith Catalucci, Hanlon, Denise Lance at Tenet Health, Shannon Lane, Newmark Knight Frank, Brian Slough, Morgan Lewis, Peter Karyakotis, Emmanuel Insurance, and Jim Rogers, Hafley Flanagan. And let's see. Shannon, can you give us a rundown on who we have on the air today, please?
Sure, Herb. We have a great lineup. We have Rocco Fiorentino, President and CEO of PrimoHoagies Franchising, Carol Austin, Executive Director of First Up, Travis Rhodes, Regional President of BB&T Bank, and Josh Bush, CEO of Avenue 2 Travel.
Let's get to know our first guest, Rocco Fiorentino, President and CEO of PrimoHoagies Franchising. Rocco, what is PrimoHoagies Franchising? What are you guys doing?
Well, thank you for having me here today. PrimoHoagies Franchising is a franchisor in the sandwich category and started in Philadelphia 15 years ago, and we're in 8 states today.
Where you from originally?
South Philadelphia.
That's like a row house.
That is exactly like a row house.
Was that like a really affluent neighborhood you grew up in?
Very Italian, and moderate income, and a lot of fun.
How many brothers and sisters?
I have 2 siblings.
And you're the youngest of 3?
I am.
So you grew up in a modest income neighborhood, row house in South Philadelphia, and I understand you've been involved. Well, you're what they call a serial entrepreneur, where you tend to get involved with something and build it, and then you get involved with building. What kind of businesses have you been involved with starting and building?
Yeah, when I was real young, Herb, my first business, I was a mechanical contractor, and then by default got into the bagel business and grew that to 68 stores, sold it to a public company, then went on to be a franchisee of Krispy Kreme in the PA, New Jersey, Delaware market, then went on to head up a company called Benetrends Financial for 7 years, and most recently, 3 years ago, I joined the team at PrimoHoagies.
So you've been involved with starting a couple and exiting a couple of substantial business. If you wanted to financially retire, could you?
I could, but that wouldn't be no fun.
What are you talking about?
Well, I don't know what I would retire to. I kind of work from the neck up, and I love what I do. So if I retired, I'd go to lunch with my friends and do deals and not get paid. That wouldn't be any fun.
So you enjoy what? What's meaningful to you? Why are you working nowadays if you don't have to?
Well, because I really love to serve people, and I really love to see progress. So I'd like to paint a few more pictures and hang them.
Brian?
So you worked in a restaurant when you were younger. How old were you when you started working there?
I was 13 when I started at Mara's Pizza on Passyunk Avenue.
How'd you get that job?
I wanted to work somewhere because I wanted to buy a car, and I went in at 13. They said they couldn't hire me because I was too young, and I said, what if I volunteered to be a busboy? And they said, absolutely, can you start tomorrow?
And did you take the easy parts of that job, or did you go for the harder parts?
No, I ended up at the tables that had a little bit of a problem, and I learned early on that we can almost overcome anyone's problem if you're just nice and understand what they're doing. So I was the guy that took care of all the troubled tables.
Mm-hmm. Peter?
Rocco, in the green room, you said you'd love to take a customer and turn them into a champion. How do you think that shows up today in your quest to serve others as president and CEO of PrimoHoagies?
Well, as president and CEO, someone can certainly use the command and control module, but I tend to use the encourage and inspire module. And with that, I always like to take a customer and make them a champion. And that doesn't mean everything's perfect all the time. It just means that we understand what issues they may have, let them know we recognize their issue, and they make us a better company, and we thank them for it. And they drop their guard, and they become a champion.
And Rocco, you come across with a lot of confidence, having built as many companies as you have. What was it like growing up in South Philadelphia as a young Rocco, and where did that confidence come from in that environment?
Well, growing up on the streets is certainly something that I treasure today. I probably would have it no other way, and although I've moved on, I never forget where I came from, and it taught me a lot about myself and taught me a lot about people.
Mm-hmm. Shannon?
Rocco, who is somebody that you looked up to when you were growing up?
Certainly my dad. My dad was a cop. My mother was a waitress. And he was really my inspiration growing up. Certainly his work ethic was second to none. And he taught me a lot of simple, common sense things, and kind of learned as I got through life, common sense is not so common.
Mm-hmm. And what was the story about the cemetery he mentioned to you?
Yeah, as I was getting to be in my teenage years, I thought I was the best thing since sliced bread, and he reminded me that the cemetery is full of irreplaceable people, and life is still going on. Imagine that.
And how do you bring that with you to work every day?
Well, today, I'm certainly much more humble about everything I do, and I realize that anyone can replace me and anyone can be replaced.
Mm-hmm. Denise?
Rocco, how young were you when you started doing creative things or building things?
Yeah, early on. When I was 3 years old, I wanted to take the car off the cereal box and see if I can fit myself in it and drive it. So I always tried to figure out how to do that.
So you were using imagination from a pretty young age.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Kayla?
Yeah, Rocco, what was your role in your friend group?
Well, growing up, I was in business at 15, and I wasn't really a big sports fan. So a lot of my friends were into sports, and on the weekends they kind of did a lot of social things, and I was working in my little truck. So I didn't really have a lot of friends growing up, but I certainly have a lot of friends now that I've known for a long, long time, and I kind of treasure them.
Mm-hmm. Jim?
You grew up in South Philly, which is just a very blue-collar neighborhood. What was your particular block like, and who lived on your block?
Yeah, we lived in a small block. There were 50 row homes on one block, so a lot of people on one block. And I had 7 different relatives in 7 different houses. So our backyards had no fences, and our doors were never locked. So I had the pleasure of going in and out of all my aunts and uncles' houses and raid their refrigerator if nothing was in mine that I wanted.
How did that fit into your current position? Like, how did that influence you?
That taught me early on about the community and how to work together, and it's all for one and one for all, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Meredith?
And I understand you have a son. Tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, my son's 22. He was born blind. He was a twin, and he survived. His brother didn't. And so he's 22 years old now, lives in Nashville. He's a musician. And I describe him best as a blind person in a sighted world. And he teaches me a lot every day. And a lot of times, I introduce him to friends, and he always tells me that sometimes us sighted people may be a little blinded by the facade when we see what people wear, where they live, what they drive. And he teaches me a lot about how to evaluate people in life, and I've learned a lot from him.
Have you learned about yourself through the course of building all these substantial businesses?
Yeah, Herb, I think I learn about myself every day. Sometimes I'm a better student than a teacher, and I think we all change, and we have to adapt.
Tell us more about that. What do you mean?
Well, I think the world is changing. Everything we do changes. I know I've changed. I can tell you that my priorities 25 years ago are certainly not my priorities today, and vice versa. My priorities today I never thought would be a priority.
Tell me more about this.
So, when we're younger, we think, fast cars and good-looking girls are what we want. But we get older and we have families, and we meet people in our lives that are influential to us, and we hopefully can be influential to them. And all of a sudden, my priorities are much different than they've ever been in previous years.
Uh-huh. Didn't you tell us a story about your dad recently? Something. How old's your dad nowadays?
Yeah, my dad's 90. He lives in Florida, strong as an ox, and I love him to death. He's very independent, and we talk a lot, and he still teaches me a lot, and he learns, some things from me, not a lot, but I still learn from him and his wisdom.
So this drive when you were 13 to go get a job in food service, and what you learned about, and what you were able to take on as a busboy that handled the troubled tables, and that, it's always keeping the customer first. This has served you through a wide variety of different industries, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And I always realize that if you can really serve people, and I have a knack to do that. First of all, I love it, and it's my passion, and I don't mind it. I actually prefer it. So I just love to do that, and it's been working for me fairly successfully my whole life.
So this idea to keep the customer first, you've been able to move into a variety of different industries and be successful, the common thread being the customer and people?
I think customer satisfaction is kind of the common thread, and that those two words take in a lot, because sometimes it takes a lot to satisfy someone. Mm-hmm. But I think if you understand them and are able to communicate clearly and are humble enough, you can always win.
And humble enough, and that's the other part that strikes me. I mean, you're all about the impermanence of everything. It's not like you're the best. It's not like this business is the best. It's like you're always evolving. It sounds like you enjoy embracing change.
Yeah, I do, and thank God, because with technology moving as fast as it does today, if you don't embrace change, I think you're left behind.
So you think technology has sped things up?
Oh my God, absolutely.
And what do you really enjoy? What's meaningful to you?
Meaningful to me is being able to help people in whatever way I can, whether that's a colleague that is going into business and needs some advice, or whether it's a customer that really wants to understand how to have a great experience.
And what frustrates you?
I don't get frustrated often. I don't have any drama in my life. I stay away from...
what was that thing about control? Earlier we were talking, you told me if you can't control it. What was that about?
Yeah, well, it's about stress. I kind of try to stay stress-free, and one of the ways I do that is I simply don't worry about things I cannot control.
What's the website address of PrimoHoagies?
PrimoHoagies.com.
We've been speaking with Rocco Fiorentino, President and CEO of PrimoHoagies Franchising here on Executive Leaders Radio. Back in a moment right after this Business Spotlight. Want help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on the show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, and we'd like to introduce Carol Austin, Executive Director of First Up. Carol, what is First Up?
So we train teachers who work with children 0 to 8 years old, mostly pre-K, about 3,000 teachers or so a year.
Wow. Where are you from originally?
Oh, Barbados.
Barbados. And how many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
Well, I'm the middle of 3 girls.
The middle of 3 girls growing up in Barbados. All right, Peter.
Growing up in Barbados, Carol, you had mentioned in the green room that it was a lot of freedom, fun, and independence. Can you talk to us a little bit about where that came from?
Yeah, I think one of the things is my parents immigrated to the U.S. when I was 8 years old, and they really encouraged and allowed us to be independent, focused on making a lot of our own decisions. And so I think that, and then growing up in Barbados, we kept our doors open. There was just a lot of fun and freedom there.
And as you were growing up in that freedom, you also mentioned to us that there were certain role models as you were growing up that you keyed in on. Can you tell us a little bit about those role models and what that meant to you as a child?
Oh, yeah. Two of my very favorite teachers, Miss Vaughn and Mr. Cadogan. Miss Vaughn, she would smile all the time. You just wanted to be around her and just be in her presence. And then Mr. Cadogan, I'll never forget, he had us memorize probably like 100 idiomatic expressions saying we would get them in the test, the promotion test, and we got none. And we still loved him because, he just expected so much of us, but he gave so much.
I said so much appreciation coming from your teachers. And how does that show up today? How does that show up at First Up for you?
Yeah. Well, at First Up, I am so about, high expectations, and in life in general, high expectations, but with lots of support. And, I think that's what, we offer teachers, and that's what there is to for teachers to offer children. That there are these high expectations. They can do anything, but we have a lot of support for that.
Denise?
Carol, you were the middle of 3 girls. Tell us a little bit about what that experience was like for you.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, being in the middle, the peacemaker, I probably am a typical middle child. But yes, I think today just hate the drama, resist the drama. And unfortunately, whenever I'm feel like I'm forced into that position, it's never pleasant for me. But, I like peace and like bringing people together in a way.
Carol, in the green room, you mentioned that when you were 8 years old, your parents moved to the U.S., but you and your sisters stayed in Barbados with your grandmom. Can you tell us more about what was going on there?
Yeah. Well, my parents, they had the dream, the immigrant dream, to move here to the U.S. and build a future for us, a brighter future. So that was the whole point of them moving.
And what exactly happened once they got to the U.S.?
Well, when they got here, my dad, he worked, I think, at Bloomingdale's in New York, as an elevator operator, and then he went to school. Spent time going back to school so he could get his degree, and just before he turned 40, I think he got his degree.
So basically, your dad, that's when you guys moved over after he got his degree.
Yes, much later. I moved when I was 18.
So this whole idea about education, the fact that your early teachers really influenced you, and the fact that you were aware that, your dad was getting an education here, that meant a great deal to you as you were growing up, didn't it?
It meant a great deal to me and in my family. I mean, they were really insistent that once they were finished, we would move up and go to college.
So education is truly a bridge between coming from Barbados to the United States.
Yes.
Jim?
What was education like in Barbados?
Oh, my goodness. What was education like in Barbados? Well, it was pretty competitive, a process where, when you're 11, you take this exam, and your score determines the school that you go to. So it was that's what we talked about. That's what we talked about at home. That's what we talked about everywhere. Going to some of the best schools and learning, and my aunt was a teacher. So it was everything. I was surrounded with it.
Were you very driven in school?
The teachers would always say, Carol can always do better. I think I really appreciated the social aspect more than anything else.
Uh-huh.
But my report cards would definitely say that. Oh, Carol has so much potential. She can always do better.
Kayla?
Yeah, Carol, you mentioned a few teachers you had when you were growing up that were role models. Which one was the most influential for you, and what do you take from them to your business today?
Yeah. Well, I think, honestly, the two that I indicated before, Miss Vaughn, because you always wanted to be in her presence. Her smile was amazing. She was beaming. And then Mr. Cadogan, because he whipped our butts, like literally, too. But we loved him, and I know why we loved him, because we knew that he had our backs. He had our backs. It was all so that we can be extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. Brian?
From what we've heard, it sounds like education gave you and your family some great opportunities. Do you see a bit of what you're doing as paying it forward to young minds to make sure they get those types of opportunities?
Oh, absolutely. For me, education is it. It's the key to everything. The end of poverty, to people experiencing themselves as being successful. It's been that for me, and I believe it is for the generations coming and present.
Earlier, you mentioned the word presence. It sounded to me like you really felt a presence from some of your earlier teachers in Barbados. And it was interesting you used that word, presence. Why'd you use that word, and why is that important in terms of what you're doing nowadays?
It's interesting because I guess whenever someone asks me who's been a mentor, it's ironic for me that the first people that always come to mind are these teachers. So I'd say that I feel their presence with me every day. What they gave to me, and I didn't even realize at the time what I was getting, like that ability and that sense of I can be extra, I can do great things, I can accomplish whatever I want to accomplish. It has just stayed with me.
Do you have a sense of how many kids you affect? I know you're affecting about 3,000 teachers a year. Do you have any idea how many children you're affecting?
Wow. Well, tens of thousands.
Mm-hmm. You ever hear any of the success stories?
Of the children?
Yeah.
Yeah, every time a child moves into kindergarten, especially because we work mostly with pre-K, and they're at the point they move through and they're able to read by the time they're in third grade, that's a success story, because that's not what's happening right now. So that's what we're up to.
So you're telling me that one of the things your group's able to do is help encourage kids so they're reading by give me that again, third grade?
Yeah, being able to read at grade level by the end of third grade, because that will set the trajectory for the rest of their life.
What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, if they can read on grade level by third grade, then they can begin to comprehend and put pieces together, which is at that stage in fourth grade, you have to then be able to apply everything that you have. So they can start to make connections. They can really start to learn.
Huh. How'd you get the sense? How do you know all this stuff?
How do I know all this stuff?
Yeah.
Well, I too am driven to know and to learn.
Why is this gig this is like a life passion for you?
Yeah,
this is not
completely.
just a job, is it?
No. I've worked in education, my whole career, really, at the high school level and now on behalf of children who are much younger. But, yeah, I've probably been in every high school, too, in Philadelphia. And, I teach in my church. It's my whole world. Is education.
But this is a nonprofit organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you go in at 9 o'clock and leave at 5 o'clock. No?
Yeah, right. Yes. You want to see my outgoing email box?
So what time do you get started in the morning? What time do you stop at night?
Well, it varies, right? Like it doesn't mean that I am some hero. I'm sure I'm just like everyone else. I work to get the job done. And if that means I work on weekends, I work on weekends. It means in the evening, it's in the evening.
Well, but you don't get paid extra for that stuff.
Oh, no.
But why do you do it? So why do you do it?
Well, I do it because I believe in it. And for me, it's about making a difference.
You believe in what?
I believe in making a difference. I believe I want what I do to count and what I do to matter. And I want to make a difference for kids.
What's the best part of your day?
That's a good question. What's the best part of my day?
Yeah.
I think being with people. Any opportunity I get to be out and around people. Definitely not the paperwork. Definitely not writing grants.
What's the website address of this organization, First Up?
Firstup.org.
Let me have that one more time.
Firstup.org.
We've been speaking with Carol Austin, Executive Director of First Up here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website. It's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. It's executiveleadersradio.com to learn more about our executive leaders. We'll be back in a moment, right after this break. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, and we'd like to introduce Travis Rhodes, who's Regional President of BB&T Bank. Travis, what is BB&T Bank?
BB&T Bank is soon to be the 6th largest bank in the nation, about $450 billion in assets, serving the South and the Mid-Atlantic regions.
Wow. How many employees?
So directly in my chain, about 170 roughly.
And how many in the total organization?
About 35,000 currently, going to 65.
Wow. Okay, where are you from originally?
Greensboro, North Carolina.
How many brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I'm an only child.
An only child. So what was the effect of you growing up as an only child?
I had two parents that loved me and were able to just bestow that love on one person, and that would be me.
Wow. All right, Peter?
Travis, did both of your parents work?
They do.
Can you tell us a little bit about the shifts that they took and what that was like growing up in that household?
Yeah, so my dad, he loaded trucks for a living. He was worked numerous shifts. Third shift, finished off his career after being laid off, working third shift, and I had a mother that worked in a distribution center, working first shift, but both working very hard.
So you had hard-working parents.
Yes.
How did that show up as an adolescent? Did you have a first job, and how young were you?
Yeah, first job was, I think my first job was mowing grass, and same time I was sanding baseboards for a painter, and I was 12 years old.
So you were doing more than one job?
Yeah.
And were the kids around you, all your friends, were they all having multiple jobs at the same time?
Unfortunately not. I was the guy that was earning the money.
What do you think the differentiator was?
The differentiator was, seeing my parents, coming from very poor backgrounds. Both of them grew up very poor, and what they had accomplished and provided for me is I never wanted to ask them for anything. I wanted to provide it for myself.
Denise?
So, Travis, what was the effect for you of growing up in Greensboro?
Yeah, so Greensboro, again, my parents really worked incredibly hard and provided a great life and even an education for me. And we moved a little bit out of the city into more of the country. It was parts of it were semi-affluent. I went to a semi-affluent high school. So as you look at just the differential between how my parents grew up, where I was versus somebody that might be in a country club, it really drove me to desire to be better myself.
Didn't you tell us in the green room you felt like you had an inferiority complex?
Yeah, I did. It was, not having the, not having the background that some of the other kids did. It really impacted the way I saw myself, and impacted where I thought that I could be in the future.
And how do you think that shows up in your work today?
I think I call it to my staff. I call it my inner crazy. So I've got this drive to be successful and to ultimately improve my team, improve myself, and so I would call it my inner crazy.
Mm-hmm. Jim?
What sports did you play in grade school and high school?
I played basketball and football.
How did they influence you today?
So I was a 6'3", position. That was a 6'3" center. So when you're looking at being a 6'3" center, and playing on a very competitive team, you've got to figure out what it's going to take to be successful. And it's when you're going up against 6'7" guys, 6'8" guys, you got to learn how to be creative and adapt to what your strengths are. And so again, that's also played into some of the things that I do now, is how to adapt to be successful.
And how does that influence you today?
Yeah, creativity is a wonderful thing, and when you're faced with some challenges that seem like they're overwhelming. Again, being 6'3" and you're going up against a guy that's 6'9", and you're having to play the blocks, and he's outweighing you by 75 pounds. You got to be creative. You got to figure out how to ultimately be successful in that role. And today, again, starting off as a branch manager, at some of the entry level positions with the bank, and working my way to where I am, at each step of the way, you had to figure out how to accomplish that role in an effective way, and a lot of that's creativity, and really finding out what your strengths are.
Travis, can you tell us a little bit about your mom and what she's like?
Yeah, my mom is one of the most loving people that you have ever met in your life, and she, I'm the apple of her eye. She adores me. But as a part of that, she also wants what's best for me. So she really drives me, and she has driven me in the past. And a part of that is.
So what do you mean?
Yeah, so showing what is it that you can improve. Really talking a lot of times, what is it that you can do better, or this was something that wasn't quite right. You can improve in this direction.
And what do you take from Mom with you to work every day?
Yeah, to continuously see the areas where I can be better.
Give us an example of how your mom helped you see what you could have improved when you were a kid.
So basketball, looking at it in a basketball game, if I did not give it 100%, she said and told me I didn't give it 100%.
Oh, I see. You had a mother like mine. Okay. And let's see. Who's next? Who's got the next question here?
And Travis, tell me a little bit about your dad.
Oh, my dad. I might tear up a little bit talking about my dad. He is a very special man. He is has the highest degree of integrity. He is a man of faith, a man that his yes means yes and his no means no. And you can count. My father never in my entire life has lied to me.
Wait a minute. I read the newspapers. I read about bankers, and if you're telling me your dad's your hero and he's never, and I get it loud and clear. I'm looking at you. It's like, you're really, I get it in your body language. Dad, man, I don't hear that about bankers, though. You're telling me that you really bring the truth and honesty and integrity to your role at BB&T Bank?
Well, that's one of the reasons I've worked for BB&T for 20 years, is because foundationally, honesty and integrity is the foundation of the bank and what it stands upon, and that's the reason that I work there. And ultimately, that came from my father, and I can proudly say that I've never lied to my kids. And that foundational, honesty is the very foundation of relationships. If you cannot have honesty and integrity, you will not have relationships or meaningful relationships. So that's the core of who I am and what my father has given me.
Your parents instilled some important lessons in you, and obviously impacted your life. How do you intend to, or how do you see your role in impacting and instilling?
Yeah, so there's three things there's three things I talk about to my employees all the time, and it's a triangle. It's heart, hustle, and competence. Is that at the very foundation is heart, is the value system. Have a very defined value system of which honesty and integrity is at the foundation. Do the right thing for the right reasons all the time. Hustle. You outwork everybody. You have a blue collar work ethic. You outwork somebody. You outwork the competition. And then competence is ultimately then, are you good at what you do? and continuously to improve yourself to be more competent as a banker, as an individual, as a father, as a friend. We all can improve in all of those different areas. So all three of those have got to work in concert: heart, hustle, and competence.
Kayla?
Travis, where does this motivation come from?
Where does this motivation come from? Motivation comes from a desire to be the best at what I do and everything, and ultimately it resonates from the very foundation of how I grew up. When you grow up, seeing a family where you've got a father and mother that sacrificed as much as my father and mother did, that worked. My dad was in the back of a trailer in 100-degree weathers or negative 5-degree weather, putting boxes on that truck. And you see how hard he worked for you, and on his shoulders, on which I stand. I've got to honor that and make sure that I can do the very best that I can so the sacrifices he made ultimately pay off.
Now, Travis, you talk about being a servant leader in our conversations. Where do you think that came from?
Yeah, servant leader, again, came from where some jobs that I, bussing tables, waiting tables, understanding that at the foundation, as clients, we serve. We serve our clients in a way that ultimately help them improve and to improve their life. And as a banker, that's one of the things that I love, is that I get to help people make payrolls. I get to help people get into their first mortgages, to put their kids through college. I look at business owners as titans because, they started businesses and ultimately then they are driving this economy. They're serving their employees. I serve them.
Travis, earlier you mentioned your kids. How many kids do you have?
I have 4.
Why 4?
Yeah, because I was an only child, and I wanted a full household, and I want a lot of grandchildren.
Tell us why. What's driving that? Tell us more about that.
I love family. Family is one of the foundational institutions of humankind, of humanity.
And how's your love for family fit into this role as your banker?
How's the love for family? I see the people that I work with as an extension of that. We call ourselves a family at BB&T, and I want to build that. And so when you're thinking about, even as an employee, we are looking to help them live into their giftedness. There are strengths and weaknesses, and we talk about that. Even in interviews, I ask somebody what their weakness is.
Give me the website address for BB&T Bank.
BBT.com.
We've been speaking with Travis Rhodes, President of BB&T Bank. Back in a moment, right after this break. Want help building your business with help from this show's CEOs? Our CEOs can help you uncover more opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that. They've succeeded in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars, and some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. The same CEOs you've heard on the show for 10 years may be willing to help you build your business, uncover new opportunities, grow your sales, connect you, help you raise money, all the big issues, because our CEOs have been there and done that, succeeding in creating millions of jobs and earning millions of dollars. And some are available to advise you. Now, email mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. That's mentors@executiveleadersradio.com. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Josh Bush, CEO of Avenue 2 Travel. Josh, what is Avenue 2 Travel?
Herb, Avenue 2 Travel is a full-service travel management company providing vacations, corporate travel, meetings, events, incentives, the full works.
And how large or how small is this organization?
We'll do over $100 million in sales this year, and we have over 100 team members at Avenue 2.
Wow. And who started this business?
My mom started the business. She's our founder. Back in the early 80s, after I had gone off to school, just school age in elementary school, she needed a hobby, and she had a passion for travel. She traveled quite a bit as herself, and she was sought after by her friends and family to plan trips and vacations for them.
Mm-hmm. Peter?
Growing up in such an entrepreneurial family, I'm sure it had a great impact on you. What do you remember most at that age when your parents first started this venture?
What I remembered most was, that being an entrepreneur, creating value, you eat what you kill, so to speak, was something that was taught to me at a very young age. My dad also was an entrepreneur. He started his own mergers and acquisitions company, and my mom had the travel agency. So, I was the child of an entrepreneur, and my grandparents were entrepreneurs, so it was something very innate.
From what I understand in the green room, that also passed to you. So talk to us about your earliest memory of being an entrepreneur yourself.
I remember being out at the end of the road with a lemonade stand wearing a big flowered shirt.
How old were you?
I was probably 5 or 6.
5 years old, you were starting already.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how do you think that impressed upon you then and shows up today at Avenue 2 for your company?
I think that for me, it's about what's coming next. How do I, envision where the company's going, what it's doing? How do we leverage the relationships and coming up with strategic partnerships that we have? It's about providing that vision and direction.
Mm-hmm. Denise?
Do you have brothers and sisters, Josh?
No, I'm an only child.
And what was that like for you?
Well, again, I like to say that, I was spoiled rotten, but at the same time, if anything went wrong or broke in the house, you know who did it. But it required me, I think, to have an air of creativity and imagination to be able to keep myself entertained while my folks were at work.
And independence.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm. Jim?
I understand at the age of 10 you had an incident in your life. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, my dad and I, we were part of Indian Guides, the thing before Cub Scouts, and we were on a skiing sledding trip, and I ended up breaking my femur, and that ended up putting me in the hospital for over 2 months and then another 4 months learning to walk again.
How did that influence you in your life today?
I think it gave me a sense of realism. It painted, I was a very kind of rosy picture type of kid to begin with, but then I also was able to get that sense of realism and that the world can be a dark place, but then how do I make that better? How do I change that and get back to that childhood memory that kind of evaporated at a young age?
Does that help you in your business today?
I mean, yeah, very much so. So particularly when we're talking about the vacation side of business, we're dealing with people's happy times. We're providing them an opportunity to see the world, connect with other cultures, and build family bonds and moments.
Kayla?
Josh, I understand you did a lot of traveling as a child, and you mentioned in the green room about a specific trip to Germany when you were 5. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, and how did that affect you?
Yeah, my first trip to Germany, again, it was very young age, but we had this opportunity at a concert evening to go up on stage with a couple of other people in attempts to blow an Alpenhorn. The two other people, way more older than I am, tried and failed, and yet when I played, it was a beautiful melody and note that came out. And what that gave me at that point in time, I think, was a sense of confidence and an ability at a very young age to know that I could perform in front of a large group of people.
Josh, can you tell us a little bit about your dad?
Yeah, my dad was a great influence in my life. Again, being an entrepreneur, showing kind of the ups and downs of again, eating what you kill and being, it's not about how hard you work, but it's about the value that you create. And so, there were lean times and then there were rich times. And, those are lessons that have stuck with me throughout my entire life and really govern the business today.
What are you talking about? What do you mean? Tell us more.
I mean, he was in charge of doing mergers and acquisitions and for his set clients. And so there could be 9, 12, sometimes 18 months between deals. And so, we wouldn't get paid. He wouldn't get paid for that amount of time. And so we'd have to be very mindful of our costs and expenses. But then there were times when that deal would come in and we would have some great riches and rewards as a result of that. That fiscal responsibility, I think, runs true in our business today.
Brian?
Yeah, so your dad's business was a bit cyclical, and it sounds like that spills over into your current business. In what ways?
My dad today is still very much involved in the business. He is our CFO and has made it possible for us to grow because of his financial discipline that has really guided our company and influenced me.
Mm-hmm.
Josh, what does your mom think about you being the CEO today?
My mom, when she started this business, is a consummate salesperson and an amazing mentor. She is energized day in and day out by teaching that next generation of travel advisor. And I don't think that she had any inkling or clue when she started this business back in the late 80s that it would be where it is today. And I think that she's excited that the entire family is able to work together.
Meredith?
And Josh, I understand you had a cat growing up named Mittens.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about what you learned from him.
Yeah, so, well, she had white paws and hence the name. But in order to get that first pet, I had to sign a contract saying that I would take care for it and feed it and a number of other different types of things. But, I think, very on, it sounds simple, but at a young age, being able to take care and care for a living organism whose needs change and develop over time is very similar to the way that we're nurturing our business and our 100-plus team members that we have today.
How'd you feel about having to sign a contract with your parent, assuming that you were going to get a pet?
I mean, it's made me create a commitment and honor that commitment, and that's what we do for our employees today. Again, it's something that was instilled at me at a very, very young age, and it's about being a person of your word.
What do you mean by that? Tell us more.
I mean, it's about honesty, it's about integrity and respect and being true to oneself. And by me putting my name on that contract and signing my name, it was something that made sense, and
so
I've never known any other different. And so now, whether I'm signing your paycheck or a contract, my word is my bond.
So you are critically concerned about delivering what you sell.
Absolutely. I mean, we're not always about just where you want to go or what you want to do, but it's also important about what's that feeling that you want to have when you get there. And so we need to make sure that your experience that you're getting is exactly what you envisioned and what you had hoped for. Money is not necessarily the most important asset, but it's your free time, your non-renewable asset that you can't get back. And we want to make sure that when you're traveling, it's exactly what you expected.
So you're not the kind of firm that's going to go help clients get unrealistic expectations. You're going to make sure that you're going to clearly help them appreciate exactly what they're going to get, so that they're going to keep coming back again and again as customers.
90% of our clients, the new clients, are referral. 70% of our clients are repeat. We deliver on what it is that we promise, and as you said, it's about setting that expectation and delivering the right experience for what our clients are expecting.
That's pretty interesting, because the travel business is a pretty competitive business, and if you're telling me that the majority of your business comes from referrals and from people coming back again, you must be doing a pretty good job delivering what you sell, which I guess is the same feeling you had about the cat.
When I started in 2006, we had 4 advisors in our company, 4 people. So we're over 100 now. Absolutely. I mean, anybody can go on the internet and buy a different trip, but it's more about coming to our team, helping you navigate that quagmire of opportunities that are out there, and then through our relationships, helping you have a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
So you're not necessarily about providing different, you're about providing better, aren't you?
It's about better, it's about value, it's about maximizing your time, it's about giving you access to things that you wouldn't be able to get on your own, it's about helping you live like a local in the destination that you're traveling to.
What's the website address for this organization?
Avenue 2, TWOtravel.com. Avenue 2 Travel.
Avenue 2, AVENUETWO travel.com.
That's right.
We've been speaking with Josh Bush, CEO of Avenue 2 Travel, here on Executive Leaders Radio. And let's see, Shannon, can you give me a rundown of who else we've had on the air today?
Sure,
please?
Herb. Great show today. We had Rocco Fiorentino, President and CEO of PrimoHoagies Franchising, Carol Austin, Executive Director of First Up, Travis Rhodes, Regional President of BB&T Bank, and just now, Josh Bush, CEO of Avenue 2 Travel.
Excellent. I'd like to thank my co-hosts, including Caleb Murphy, Merrill Lynch, Meredith Castellucci from Hanlon, Denise Lance, Attentive Health, Shannon Lane, Newmark Knight Frank, Brian Slough, Morgan Lewis, Peter Carriacotis, Emmanuel Insurance, Jim Rogers, Hayfley Flanagan, for giving me a hand structuring the questions. Hope you're providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. I'd like to thank our listening audience for listening. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a radio show. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com. Thank you for joining us today, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.